This video is brought to you by Squarespace, an all-in-one platform for building a brand and growing your business online. Hello, my beautiful doves. My name is Mina, and on this channel, I talk about fashion, media, and the culture. And today I thought I would do a review video of Bridgerton Season 3 because I haven't done one of those in a while. Spoiler is I didn't love it, which is actually devastating as a Bridgerton Season 2 truther. I even read the book, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, in anticipation for the season, which honestly I didn't even like either, so we'll get into that in a bit. I just realized when I was prepping my script that I haven't actually made a movie or TV show review in a really long time. At first, to stand in solidarity with the Hollywood strikes last year, but the strikes have been over for a bit now, and I just got into this rhythm of writing more like research-dense videos. And I feel like once I started exclusively making these kind of research videos, it was harder to be like, okay, now I'm gonna do something fun and a little brainless. But I've covered Bridgerton Season 1 and 2 in the past, so I thought I would continue with Season 3 and see how it feels to reintroduce these kind of videos back on the channel. Bridgerton Season 2 aired March 2022, so it's been 2 years. Obviously, the strike put the release of Season 3 on pause, and because of the aftermath, Netflix is slowly rolling out their shows, breaking apart one season into two. The first aired in May, and the second aired in June. Let's quickly recap what happened last season so that we're all on the same page because, once again, it's been a while. Anthony Bridgerton, aka hot, sexy, yearner, head of household, Viscount Anthony Bridgerton, gets married to ultra babe, gorgeous, beautiful Kate Sharma. Their story is sort of like enemies to lovers, eldest child syndrome selflessness, and unlike Season 1's Daphne and Simon story, they're pretty chaste until the end, building up this sense of like sexual tension throughout the season. This is my preferred model as a period drama enthusiast. I love a slow burn, but I know that Bridgerton entered the zeitgeist as this like sexy, raunchy bodice ripper show, so I noticed that people who loved Season 1 didn't really vibe with Season 2 and vice versa. As for the other characters, the most important info from Season 2 that I'll be referring to in this video is that Colin Bridgerton comes back from traveling abroad at the start of the season. Queen Charlotte accuses Eloise Bridgerton of being Lady Whistledown and basically threatens to ruin her life. Penelope Featherington, who is actually Lady Whistledown, decides to write something scandalous about Eloise to save Eloise from the Queen's spite. Eloise finds out the truth and ends the friendship, feeling betrayed that Penelope has kept this pretty large thing a secret, and also that she's exposed her secrets to the ton. And while she's already down, Penelope cannot catch a break. She overhears her crush Colin saying to a group of bros that he would never court her.
I would never dream of courting Penelope Featherington. Not in your wildest fantasies, Fife.
And that's what you missed on Bridgerton Season 2. Squarespace makes website design simple and easy. Even if you can't code, even if your design aesthetic is shaky, Squarespace offers all these tools like pre-made templates, a drag and drop technology called Fluid Engine, and custom color palettes to help you out. They also provide powerful built-in analytics so you can track who's visiting your site and more with page views, traffic sources, time on site, most read content, audience geography, etc. Most people want a personal website to build relationships with their page viewers, and Squarespace aids that goal further by offering email campaigns. You can easily collect email subscribers on your site and build connections through regular email updates. With fun templates, of course. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Minalai to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I loved Season 2 so much. As I said, I thought it was the perfect amount of frivolous fun, drama, steamy romance, and so I was genuinely really excited about Season 3. However, if you weren't aware, the Bridgerton series is based on the books that each center a Bridgerton siblings' love story. The first 2 seasons follow the first 2 books, but Season 3 skips over Benedict's story to the 4th book, which centers Colin. The new Bridgerton showrunner, Jess Brownell, explained the decision. We've been watching Penn's crush and seeing how oblivious Colin is to it the past 2 seasons. That's a dynamic that you can only play out for so long before something has to change. This really felt like the right time to lean into what's been set up with them. On the Benedict side, he's such a fun character and such a fan favorite that we are really excited to play with him for a little bit more and let him have more fun before he settles down. So the love trope that Colin and Penelope are supposed to play into is the friends to lovers trope. But the problem is that because of the structure of the show, there's really not a lot of friendship we get to witness between the two of them leading up to this season. It more or less felt like Penelope had a schoolgirl crush on Colin and he was just mainly oblivious to it.
I was not exactly lonely on my travels. I did begin a real conversation with someone I had known for a very long time, myself.
Yourself.
Most of their interactions were also chaperoned or interrupted by Eloise.
Ben, I finally found you.
You always do.
You've been back a matter of hours, yet you're already on my way.
Penelope apparently wrote him letters during his travels.
You read and replied to more of my letters than anyone else.
I suppose I did.
But we don't read the correspondences between them either, so there's not that much to work with. Each season has just been so focused on developing the storyline of the main couple that the other characters aren't given much space to develop their own relationships, which was fine for seasons 1 and 2 because Daphne and Anthony were not slow burn friends to lovers stories, but for Colin, there's a palpable history that we, the audience, are missing.
Do you remember when we first met? And you were so very charming. And I think I know why. Because we were children.
I honestly think they should have kept on with Benedict's story for season 3 and then during his season intersperse more Penelope and Colin, with Colin being a bit more emotionally mature and receptive to Penelope's interest in him so that we can start seeing the vision of them as a couple. But let's get into the play-by-play of this season. At the beginning of season 3, Eloise has completely dropped Penelope as a friend, moving on with Cressida Cowper, the Ton's resident mean girl. This is a major diss because Cressida has also been bullying Penelope for the past 2 seasons.
How convenient.
Colin has been traveling again and returns as this Casanova, which makes absolutely no sense because he already went traveling last summer. If anything, this should have been his first time traveling. But I'm what's so different about Greece round 2? He's been there before. Came back still as a pastel-colored goof. What's changed about this trip in particular? It's also a little cringe how much they try to pitch this new Colin to us. His first scene is him changing his shirt, so we get a good look at the material, to say the least. With his brothers saying stuff like, traveling has changed you so much.
I must know, who are you? What have you done with our brother?
To imply we're about to see him be out of character for this season, but it's fine, just roll with it because Greece. Colin also gets essentially Netflix's version of a fan cam, basically a montage that puts him in the best light possible as this charming, flirty, eligible bachelor that all the girls in the ton are swooning over. The pirate-esque duster, new tan, and hairdo obviously help. We also see him in these random threesomes at a brothel that I think we're supposed to read as him being sexually experienced. I also think because some of the criticisms from season 2 was the lack of raunchiness, they were trying to cram in some extra sex while the audience waited for Colin to get together.
Same time tomorrow?
Perhaps.
Either way, these dudes were so unwatchably bland. Yeah, I was cringing. So I think it's really obvious. I don't love what they did with Colin's character. I think his suave, devil-may-care attitude recalls Simon in season 1, which we already had. We already have this type of male character, this archetype. And also I didn't even buy it, especially because in the past seasons, we've seen Colin be goofy, gullible, kind of awkward compared to Anthony and Benedict.
And let the catch and toast go round. And then the catch, and then the catch.
And by the 4th book, Colin is pretty insecure and is undergoing an existential crisis about the meaning of his life. So I honestly would have loved for them to explore that side of his character instead of remolding him into what they think women want a leading man to be.
I oiled my way right in. That was an olive joke.
As for Penelope, she decides she's going to use her whistle-down money to get a new wardrobe because she's tired of being single and wearing yellow, and can we blame her?
I do not wish to see a citrus color ever again.
She debuts her new jewel-toned green dress at the ball with period drama leading lady, aka incredibly historically inaccurate, long hairdo, and she stuns. I also love, you can see some, copper within the green dress. There's a lot of dimension in the dress, which brings out her hair color really nicely. But unfortunately for her, even though there's this outward glow up, she's still incredibly awkward. So even though some suitors come to her, she basically chases them away with her personality.
What a striking gown you have on.
You as well, my lord. Not the gown part.
As just a costume note, I really don't like the sheer gloves, which feel very early 2010s prom and I think cheapens the whole look. And also, I don't love the bold glamour filter makeup, which again, it's giving 2010s. Like over the past year or so, I feel like makeup trends have skewed towards clean beauty, which is actually really in line with Regency period typical makeup. So going for something simpler would actually be both appealing to modern and traditional beauty standards. In an interview with Vulture, costume designer John Glazer justifies this decision by saying it's Penelope's first attempt at something new. So it was a little off and not quite right. It was too far out of her comfort zone. So I get it's supposed to be a little too much, but I think this was just way too much. We could have achieved the same effect just by the dress color alone because we never see Penelope wearing a color this bold or mature ever again. Anyways, I don't really want to talk too much about the costumes because Bridgerton likes to do their own thing. Clearly, the show's designers have always taken creative liberties. But I noticed this season, the costumes skewed way more Disney fantasy for some reason. Like Cressida Cowper's outfits were super maximal and tackier than they've ever been in the past. Like she's fully giving Cinderella's evil stepsister. And I understand her costume journey is supposed to represent her increasing desperation on the marriage market, but some of these silhouettes were cartoonish to the point of distraction. It also doesn't really make sense that her dad would let her go to balls wearing these outfits in the first place, since every time he's on screen, he's like super rigid and controlling.
You are not to be seen with that Bridgerton girl any longer.
I mean, look at their home. This is not a home that supports the puffy sleeve agenda.
It is more like a mausoleum in here, isn't it?
Colin Bridgerton also looks like Captain Hook from Once Upon a Time. Assistant costume designer Dougie Hawkes said of Colin's look, "I wanted to make him daring, dashing, and dangerous. Those were the three elements I wanted to bring into his costume." None of these things are what I associate with Colin Bridgerton, and so maybe it's partially the costumes, but maybe it's partially also the story, because he ended up just reading to me as like a cosplayer. I wasn't buying it. Glazer told Essence something interesting about the overall direction in the season's costumes. So the audience has watched the show, and we didn't have to hold to each family's color palette as much as we did before. Now we can expand our colors, we can expand our textures, we can help to enhance the characters without using certain colors that aren't correct for them. So we were able to design things that were more in tune with the actual person and the character that they were showing us. I'm fine with the color palettes changing and the incorporation of more textures, but I do think they went a little too crazy and maximalist. There were just so many flowers and bows, and it made everything look so much tackier, like they just raided Joann's Fabric or like Michael's craft store or something. And also, again, if they wanted the costumes to read more modern, fashion has been skewing minimal with quiet luxury and slinky 90s silhouettes coming back. So paring down like the trimmings and extra elements would actually look better to our eyes right now than, whatever was going on here. The stuffy tweed Spencer Francesca wears in particular haunts me in my sleep. I also don't think that all the costumes necessarily reflect the characters that well anyway. For example, Eloise. Like, don't get me wrong, I did really like some of Eloise's dresses, aside from the, thank you, Norman. Aside from the droopy muffs that looked like bath towels that she was carrying around. But, I really loved her more menswear adjacent looks in previous seasons, which felt more in line with her character. She claims that she's undergoing a conformity phase at the beginning of the season.
Perhaps my tastes have changed.
But it doesn't really make sense because at the same time, she keeps swearing off marriage. So why conform if you still don't want to participate?
And can you imagine all the spare time there would be if we did not always have to think about marriage?
The costume designers were probably just following along with the script they were given, so I can't blame them. But this whole Eloise makeover made very little sense to me. It also doesn't happen in the books, so they just threw that in there. I will say that I did fuck heavy with Queen Charlotte's wigs, which I thought were delightfully over the top and fun in a way that corresponds with her character, especially the ice sculpture one. It still drives me crazy that she's wearing 30-year-old fashion trends as a monarch, but I digress. We can't win with everything. So back to the story. The first few episodes are Colin taking on Penelope as a she's all that project. He's going to teach her how to snag a husband.
I'm the perfect person to practice on. You don't have to be embarrassed. You know me.
I thought these lessons would take up more of the show because theoretically they're a good opportunity to build up the intimacy between the two of them, but the lessons end pretty quickly after like one intimate moment. Again, the pacing of the show was just driving me crazy. Also, because they're friends, I would have loved to see more casual banter between the two of them. Instead, their conversations are mostly like serious and dramatic, especially in the second half of the show. Also, I should add the reason he volunteers to teach Penelope is because he feels guilty that she overheard him dissing her.
I overheard you telling everyone how you would never ever court Penelope Featherington.
Which, by the way, he never really addresses why he did that. Like, in the books, Penelope is actually 28 and Colin is 33 by the time they get together. So she's been on the shelf for a while. She's like actually verging into spinster territory.
I'm 27 years old. I've no money and no prospects. I'm already a burden to my parents.
And the thing that she overheard him say was years ago. So it's like excused as just him being immature and silly at the time. Also in the books, leading up to that moment, his mother had been pressuring him to get with Penelope. And he's tired of hearing about it because he's not ready to be married. And he's venting not to some random guys that he's friends with, but to Anthony and Benedict. But in the show, because they rushed the timeline, I feel like it's harder for me to believe that he can go from, I would never court this girl, to, I would die for her, I love her so much, that quickly. There's a pivotal moment when Penelope reads his travel diary and he gets flustered and upset and accidentally cuts his hand trying to take it back. Penelope then wraps his hand in a bandage and it leads to this tender moment between the two of them. This scene happens in the book, but it's also a little different. So in the show, the passage Penelope reads is quite sexual.
In those moments alone, as my fingers trace freckles from cheek to collarbone.
In the book, she reads a poetic G-rated passage. I get that Bridgerton has a horny reputation to uphold, but I also think that changing the content of the passage can make it seem like Colin was embarrassed she read something so sensual, when the point is that she literally just read his writing, period, which he doesn't think is very good. He's very insecure about it. This is such a major issue for Colin in the book. It actually drives his dislike for Penelope's Lady Whistledown project. He doesn't care about like gossip or whatever. He's just jealous that Penelope has the balls to publish her writing and he doesn't. Loser. But the show scraps the writing insecurities, probably because it felt low-key misogynistic in the book. And it was annoying that Colin's problems are like all made up in his head. Like he has the capabilities to publish his writing, but he just won't. It's not interesting, and it doesn't make him sympathetic to audiences either. I think what they could have done to update the story for 2024 sensibilities is to make him more awkward as well. Like, he clearly did care about external validation because that's the reason that's implied in the show why he was insulting Penelope among his guy friends. I think this could have been like a nice coming-of-age story for the both of them, but because Colin does his growing off-camera while traveling, this season is mostly Penelope's story, with Colin as like a one-note side character. He also virtually always has the upper hand in the relationship. Like, he's privileged as a rich, desirable man, his family is wonderful and supportive, and for the majority of the show, Penelope has always been the one pursuing him. So the relationship feels really imbalanced, with Penelope and us basically just waiting for Colin to finally admit to himself that he's interested in her.
Because I love you.
Are you sure?
Are we sure? As Catherine Van Arendonk writes in her review of the show for Vulture, Colin has ample resources, the social standing to survive a scandal, and almost no responsibilities. He's the most desired bachelor of the season. He's doing great. So when the inevitable fallout of Penelope's secret identity finally reaches Colin, the betrayal and sadness that should feel equal on each side instead feels obnoxiously lopsided. Ideally, when two romantic leads clash, the audience should be able to sympathize with both parties, understanding whatever perspective is keeping them apart, even if they'll clearly work it out. But because Colin has so little growth over the course of the season, the viewer is mostly waiting for him to get over himself. Also, Penelope has done so much for Colin, like writing him letters and telling him he's so talented.
Your writing is very good.
So when she dares to advocate for herself for once with her Whistledown column and he antagonizes her, it feels annoying, controlling, borderline misogynistic.
Are you going to stop publishing?
I do not know.
Let us get through this wedding, and then we will decide what this marriage will be.
Get away from her!
By the way, I think I should clarify, I don't really fuck with the overlooked woman pining over hot man trope. It's actually more annoying in the book because every time it shifts to Penelope's POV, it's her moping about how Colin couldn't possibly love her. It also takes a lot longer in the book for Colin to realize he's in love with Penelope. But, you know, we're in simp boy summer, low key, with challengers and the please, please, please video being strong in the zeitgeist. So yeah, I'm just really not in the mindset to see a woman yearning harder for a man than he does for her, you know? I did cry like a faucet though when Penelope asked Colin to kiss her because I'm a human and I have feelings.
But I am nearly on the shelf and I have never been kissed and I am not certain I ever will be.
But Penelope, we deserve better. To raise the stakes, we introduce Lord Debling, who is this dashing, wealthy lord who loves nature, and he takes a liking to Penelope.
Well done.
For being a fool.
For stepping away from the herd.
And also sort of looks like a teddy bear graham cracker. He also doesn't care about gossip and also would smash. I really liked Lord Debling. I thought he was so sweet. And honestly, I liked his scenes with Penelope more than Colin's scenes with Penelope. I'm sorry, shoot me. Lord Debling saved her from getting knocked over by a hot air balloon. That was pretty swoon-worthy.
Miss Featherington!
He's chivalrous, he's multifaceted, and he's a man who knows himself. We can't say the same about Colin Bridgerton. Apparently, the reason why Colin takes so long to recognize he loves Penelope is because he expects love to feel like getting struck by a lightning bolt. So he asks his mother for advice, and she tells him that her relationship with his father was actually a friendship first.
But I thought you believed the best foundation for great love was friendship.
Indeed, I do. It is how your father and I began.
But then, when she's giving advice to her daughter Francesca, she tells her that her relationship was surprising and forceful.
You know, when I first met your father, I could barely speak my own name. I was so taken by him. I thought that is what love must be like for everyone. Surprising, forceful, quick.
Like, what is the truth, Violet? So, in my opinion, repression because you're trying to uphold your family reputation and decenter your own needs and wants, a la Anthony Bridgerton. Incredibly based, romantic, sexy. Repression because you have no emotional intelligence? Incredibly lame. Lord Debling's existence is literally only to make Colin jealous. I'm serious, he literally disappears after Penelope and Colin get together. Like, what happened to him? Like, is he still single? Is he still looking? The pivotal moment is that Colin sees Debling and Penelope together at the ball, and he interrupts them mid-dance and botches the entire proposal because he just can't stand the idea that Penelope is going to marry someone else.
You cannot marry that man.
And then he her in the horse carriage afterwards, as if that's supposed to make up for it. Maybe I'm just old, but nothing about this was romantic to me. It was sexy, sure, but definitely not romantic. Like Brittany Broski mentioned this on her podcast, it's like when your ex comes barking back only when he finds out you're with a new man. Like, it's too late. Also, could we not have publicly embarrassed everyone by throwing a tantrum in the middle of a dance? Like, could we not have confessed our feelings later in private like civilized people? That's the first half of the season. The second half deals with the Lady Whistledown persona. Eloise puts pressure on Penelope to tell Colin, who, for no justifiable reason, has a newfound sworn hatred of Lady Whistledown.
I will make sure it is her life that is ruined.
I say not justifiable because he didn't actually care about Lady Whistledown the previous seasons, and also he's a man. Like, why do you as a man care so much about gossip? Stay in your business.
You do not read Lady Whistledown?
I do not.
Colin finds out, says he'll never forgive her,
I will never forgive you.
but still marries Penelope anyway because he is a man of honor. And then the next few episodes are whiplash of him going back and forth between being in love and then being annoyed. Like, they would literally fight, and then I guess he would get lost in her eyes or something and then start making out with her.
You've been putting yourself in danger, living this double life all along.
But then they'd be back to being tense again the next day with him sleeping on the settee. Speaking of, I know his back must feel crazy after sleeping on that settee. Like, his legs are definitely hanging off the arm. Can we not afford anything else in this Bridgerton household? Can we not afford a longer couch? Queen Charlotte, fueled by her one-sided beef, also announces that anyone who can unveil Lady Whistledown will receive £5,000 from her. Cressida Cowper, desperate for money to get away from her oppressive father, claims to be Whistledown herself.
Today I bring you much gossip from about the many lands, near and far, far and wide.
She publishes a letter just to prove it, and it is scathing towards the Bridgertons because this follows a fight between her and Eloise, and, you know, she was feeling, I guess, a little upset.
Perhaps the family confuses love with lust.
And also Cressida's mother has one-sided beef with the Bridgertons. But Penelope, who hates Cressida, cannot rest with her taking the credit, and therefore writes a letter as well just to say Cressida is in fact not Lady Whistledown.
And I cannot tolerate a lie.
Queen Charlotte then suspects Whistledown is one of the Bridgertons because the second letter came out to discredit all the anti-Bridgerton claims.
Only when the Cowper girl publishes lies about this very family, suddenly Whistledown rushes to print.
Which, continuity-wise, doesn't make sense because Lady Whistledown has published scandalous things about the Bridgertons before.
Is this new character the real him, or simply a ploy for attention?
So, logically, doesn't make any sense. In the final episode at the ball, Penelope unveils herself, apologizes for some of the things that she's written, and promises to do better with her pen. Queen Charlotte forgives her, allows her to keep writing because there's literally no other way for the plot to go. Colin and Eloise also forgive her. I don't know, it just felt like a cop-out, like it didn't feel rewarding for me as a viewer. Also in the book, it's actually Colin who devises the plan to reveal Penelope as Lady Whistledown in front of the ton, but he introduces her with this like heartfelt speech about how proud of her he is that catches Penelope off guard and reaffirms her love for him. I guess they wanted Penelope to have the agency to put herself in the spotlight, which I can respect, but the unfortunate thing is like the relationship suffers because of that. Cressida then gets shipped off to her aunt in Wales, and we skip ahead in the future where Penelope and her sisters have all given birth to new babies, and Colin has published his book. Penelope also continues to write Lady Whistledown, which doesn't make logistical sense, since the only reason she was able to overhear so much gossip in the first place is because people didn't care about her. Like, now that everyone knows she's Lady Whistledown, who is going to say anything scandalous with her around? I'm also wondering if Nicola Coughlan, I learned that's how her name is pronounced the other day. I apologize for previous mispronunciations. But I wonder if she'll be contracted to provide Lady Whistledown's voiceover every season now instead of Julie Andrews,
as we begin this next part of our journey.
And like, I obviously want the most success for Nicola because I'm obsessed with her. And if you haven't seen Dairy Girls, you absolutely need to. Run, don't walk. So I obviously want her career to blow up even more and for her to like do other projects outside of Bridgerton. But I think without Lady Whistledown, or Penelope in this case, the show loses its structure completely. Like, every episode is bracketed by voiceovers from Lady Whistledown that explain to us, the audience, what's going on in the show. Lady Whistledown was also a major part of the series' initial marketing. It would just be really strange to introduce a new format without her, but I guess, we'll have to wait and see. The main problem with the season for me, aside from my own romance taste veering away from the Paula tropes and Colin's entire character annoying me, is that they broke away from the format of centering the main couple and instead tried to do the whole ensemble cast format by going back and forth between many different stories, which would have been okay if the stories were interesting, but many of them were not. For example, the Mondrich family finds out their son has inherited the Kent estate, and they basically undergo non-real problems, aka the woes of adjusting to rich people life. It's just incredibly boring and unnecessary. It would have been different if the Ton was more judgmental about their status change and there was like an actual struggle to be accepted, but all their problems like exist in their own heads. And while I love Anthony and Kate, they also sort of just exist as fan service in the season. At the end of the show, they announced they're going to India, but Kate says she's pregnant, and I think that's like a crazy idea to go on a months-long journey by ship as a pregnant woman in the 19th century. It also doesn't make any sense because Anthony is a Viscount, so he's in charge of managing the Bridgerton estate. And he's also pretty hard-ass about it. So it's also like out of character for him to be like, okay, bye for the next several years. I don't live under a rock, okay? Like, I'm sure the India plotline is literally just to serve as an out for the actors so they don't have to come back while still giving the audience an explanation for why they're gone. Because when Reggie Jean Page left the show, it was kind of off-putting for fans since there was like no reason for him to be absent. Phoebe Dynevor also didn't show up in season 3, which I'm not gonna lie, I knew she wasn't coming back ahead of time, but it was still really distracting for me that Daphne Bridgerton was not at her brother or sister's wedding, especially when she allegedly lives like not too far away. I also want to clarify that I don't fault any actor who decides not to return. A cameo every now and then would be lovely, but I can understand why it's difficult going from like number 1 on the call sheet to a guest spot. Any good agent would be like, you're not doing that. Especially if there's other projects that are trying to cast you that might conflict with Bridgerton's production schedule. I actually clocked this when I first heard the direction that Bridgerton was taking with centering new characters each season. It's just like a recipe for actors to leave, and I wonder how it's going to affect the show's viewership in the future. Like, it's sort of emotional whiplash to see characters that you spent hours investing in just disappear completely. I wonder if this is why the series has taken a more ensemble approach so that we can start emotionally attaching to side characters in the case of the main ones leaving. So this is not to say that I don't like an ensemble cast format. Like, I did really enjoy The Gilded Age, and I think that is like a perfect example of an ensemble story because every character gets like a lot of spotlight and there's not one story that really dominates. But I think it'll be difficult for Bridgerton to adjust to that because all their marketing is literally about the main couple. You know, even despite the season giving Pollen less screen time than the previous couples, like all the marketing was about Pollen. But anyway, back to other things I didn't like in the plot. Lady Danbury's brother Marcus is introduced to become Violet Bridgerton's new boo, which is fine. But then there's this like low stakes drama between Lady Danbury and Marcus that's not properly fleshed out and just takes up screen time. Benedict gets swept into a twosome and then a threesome, unleashing his bisexual awakening that everyone in the audience already saw coming. This was fun. I love to see that queer representation, but low-key, it wasn't spicy enough. Like, not enough tension, not enough taboo, not enough anything. Sorry, my standards are just really high now. Like, Challengers was just hot off the press.
I'd let her fuck me with a racket.
So in the wise words of Tasha Duncan, come on. I realize this review has been very negative and I don't want to completely pan the season. Like, there were a few plot lines I did like. For example, I liked that Cressida Cowper's character gets fleshed out more. In the book, she's just like a run-of-the-mill, one-dimensional villain. Her original story is that she gets married, but her husband turns out to be poor, which is why she's after money now. In the show, she's trying to get money to break away from her terrible family and live independently. This new arc makes her way more sympathetic to the point where I actually got annoyed with Eloise just dropping her as a friend. And that scene when Colin didn't understand that she's not as privileged as him.
You take for granted that you will always have your family's support.
Actually, Colin pissed me off a lot during the scene because his character is giving, I don't care about a woman's struggles unless I'm attracted to them. Like, Anthony, God tier.
I'm a gentleman.
Anthony is the type to make sure his wife's friends make it all home safely. Colin, I'm not so sure about. In the end, Cressida gets shipped off to Wales, so that was sort of like an anticlimactic end to her story. I do feel like she might come back in a later season as a new, evolved person, but you know, that to me again feels a little lazy. It's once again using travel as a way to develop a character without having to actually write that development. But who knows, maybe we'll follow Cressida in Wales. I also really love Portia Featherington a lot and her changing relationship with Penelope over this season. Previously, Portia had overlooked Penelope and made jibing remarks at her expense. So it feels really rewarding to see her struggle with saying the right thing now. Like, even when she says something hurtful, you see the remorse and confusion in her face. Like, she thought she was helping, but clearly she didn't. But finally, Portia and Penelope learn to understand each other, which I think is, really touching. I really enjoyed their scenes together. I also was very interested in Eloise and Penelope's dynamic this season. Like, this was the love story I was actually most invested in. It was lovely to see the nuances of how Eloise still cared for Penelope all season.
Oh, how mortifying. I'm so clumsy. I thought we did not like Penelope.
What you did was cruel and unnecessary.
But just wasn't ready to forgive her until the end. And if I'm allowed to speak, they should have been the endgame couple. Like, it goes back to that quote I read earlier about how, it's ideal for in a conflict between a romantic couple, even if they're wrong in some way, it's important for the audience to understand each person's position. And for Colin and Penelope, we don't really understand any of Colin's decisions. But for Eloise and Penelope, that is the perfect conflict where it's these two girls hurt each other so much where you can see why the friendship is not working out between them, but you still want it to work out because they still love each other deep down. All in all, I watched the whole thing, so I liked it enough. And I get it's hard to follow the magnum opus of Canthony. I also think that because of the 2-year break between seasons 2 and 3, there were plot points that I didn't remember and had to look up, which kind of took me out of it. For example, the whole Cousin Jack scam that was referred to multiple times had completely left my short-term memory storage. Also, the fact that Penelope wrote about Eloise's friendship with Theo and Lady Whistledown, which was the whole reason for their fallout, is only hinted at. I feel like that should have been reestablished more firmly, because I feel like when you take such a long break between seasons, it's difficult to expect everyone to remember all the plot points covered before. And it's also unrealistic to expect everyone's going to rewatch the previous seasons in preparation for this one. Like, there's just too many TV shows. There's not enough time. Like, people are not going to do that. Apparently, season 4 also won't be coming out for another 2 years. So I'm hoping that they'll keep this all in mind. For now, I am planning to keep watching because Benedict is one of my favorite characters.
Does Miss Edwina return your affection?
Not yet. She would have done if it were not for
The sister.
Do you do this every night?
Oh, did you come to admonish me?
I only meet...
He's got the leading man sauce. But I'm not gonna lie, I do get turned off by long breaks because it ruins the momentum of the show. Like, I just want shows to go back to a yearly format. Like, is that too much to ask? Let's not get fancy. I don't need CGI or wigs with moving swans in them. I just want consistency. And that's why The Bear will always come up top. Anyway, this is the end. Let me know in the comments what you thought about Bridgerton Season 3. If you agreed with me or disagreed with me or anything. Love to hear it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.